Welcome into another edition of Mavs Latest. I'm Josyah Howard, and thank you, Kyrie Irving, for the great content on your live stream and for continuing to give us updates here. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of speculation in terms of what the timeline is of his return from his ACL injury. And if you're trying to get an optimistic answer from Kyrie, well, you came to the wrong podcast because he did say don't hold your breath on a potential early return in terms of being available for the playoffs or ready before the playoffs or whatever the case may be. He said don't hold your breath. It doesn't mean that I won't be back. I don't want to make any predictions on when I'm going to be back. I just want to be 150,000 times better than before. So I'm just taking my time to really get healthy, and really, I'm just enjoying this recovery process, man. It's not pretty. Yes, it's a beautiful struggle, but I go through the mental roller coaster ride every day, and I just want to be back out there. I mean, first of all, pretty much an answer you expect from somebody that is going through a recovery process like Kyrie Irving is. You don't want to set the expectations too high. You don't want to set a timeline, and then you don't reach that timeline, and everybody is now saying, all right, Kyrie, you said you're going to be back in February, let's just say, and now you're not back. So where are you? I thought it was a great answer from Kyrie. I do appreciate that, though the updates aren't necessarily him saying I'm going to be back at this time. I do love just get hearing his optimism through the process, that he's in good spirits, that he's staying positive, um that he realizes what the situation is at hand, and it's he's needed in the situation, but he needs to be at, like he said, 150,000% to be there. So again, we're not rushing Kyrie back. It's great to hear these updates. I'm appreciative that he could hop on the stream and talk to the fans, talk to the community, and give us these type of updates because a lot of people have podcasts and stuff like that, but streams are a little bit of a different way of it consuming content, and it feels a little bit more intimate sometimes, especially with a guy like Kyrie Irving who, you know, is going to end up being a first ballot Hall of Famer, obviously an NBA champion. So he also later in the stream gave some flowers to former guard John Wall, obviously a number one overall pick, also dealt with similar injury struggles, but obviously Kyrie has been able to bounce back from them, and John Wall hasn't quite been able to bounce back for them the same way. But he says, "Let me give John Wall some flowers. He definitely set a precedent, set the example the year before as a number one pick, being a point guard. Everything you could want an exciting guard in the NBA. For us to go back to back point guards in the NBA, that was generational. And I don't think it'll ever be a run like that again of two point guards going back to back number one overall picks in the best league in the world. Cool to see Kyrie give John Wall, a player like that, his flowers because yeah, he's really good in his time in the league, and his run in Kentucky and doing the John Wall, everybody doing the Dougie dancing with John Wall. It was a great time. It was a great run. He definitely deserves his flowers. He definitely had a time and a place in the league, and it just didn't work out for him, unfortunately, as well as it has for others. So, shout out to John Wall. He was one of my favorites growing up, but shout out to Kyrie again for just I don't know, man. The shift in vibe from him over these last few years just been great, and I've always said it here on Mavs Latest. I'm gonna always give Kyrie his flowers when he, is consistently displaying this behavior. It's not just to stay in good favor. It's been consistent behavior over years now, and I love to see it from Kyrie. I hope he keeps it up. And again, I'm always gonna show my love when he continues to display that behavior. So, um, On to the next thing here on Mavs Latest. Another prominent voice speaks upon the Luka Doncic trade, and that is former Celtics owner, just sold the team, Wick Grusbeck. He joined the Club 520 podcast and was questioned about the Dallas Mavericks decision making in the process of the trade. And he went on to say, I don't really want to pick on anybody, but I'll have to give you an honest answer. I think if we traded somebody of that level, which we're not, but if we were, we would call everybody and it would probably leak out, but that's what you got to do to get a trade done of that magnitude. And then when you get 5 picks back, or six, I mean, Desmond Bain got four and a swap, and then you get like one pick, maybe two. So I mean, yeah, it just feels like, now they're ending up with Cooper Flag, but it's not all connected really that way. He continued. I don't know. I feel it must have been painful for them to do that to Luca. So they didn't want to let everybody know about it. Probably it's kind of human nature, I guess. Um, I mean, I could definitely see that perspective from the former Celtics owner, Wick Grusbeck, in terms of they didn't ask everybody because they probably, in a way, felt bad that they were trading Luca. The human nature of that. Um, Maybe that should have told them they shouldn't have traded Luca. I don't know. Maybe. But maybe that was their gut, their intuition telling them to not trade Luca. But I digress. Uh, it is kind of interesting to see a owner talk about this trade that was such a uh, NBA culture shifter, and now that Wick can kind of step back and talk about these types of things, it's cool to see that even an owner of a prominent, traditional, historic NBA franchise sits here and says, "Oh yeah, we're not trading Luca unless we get 5 first-round picks." There's no world. He didn't obviously say it in that way, but he did say, "Yeah, if it was me, and I wouldn't even trade him, but if it was me." So in one breath saying I wouldn't even make the trade, but if the trade had to get done, I'm getting at least 5 first-round picks. Um, just on the same topic of the Luka Doncic trade, we obviously talked about Donnie Nelson speaking out about the Luka Doncic trade with Epica 24, and we got to the power bite of how it wasn't just a disappointment, it was a universal disappointment, but there's just a few more quotes I wanted to go through with Donnie Nelson because such a prominent figure in the past for the Dallas Mavericks. I think it's just good to see the emotions of people that were formerly with the franchise and how they feel about it. But the first thing he mentions is how the team was with Dirk Nowitzki for 21 years and the last three were just out of respect. People like that deserve to say goodbye on their own terms and according to their wishes, and everyone deserves a decent funeral, figuratively or literal. Nelson admitted he was stunned by the trade, and he said everyone was shocked, and some of us are still shocked. Um, he he learned something from his mom, and he said his mom said if you don't have anything good to say, don't say it at all. And he starts reflecting on his time with Dallas and says during his time in Dallas, we always considered what was important to the community, and we always looked at the players as being part of that. It wasn't always like we went to one of our ATMs, took out a player, used him as until he was most useful, and then threw him away. Um, and then he continues to say, of course, this is the NBA and trades happen, players come and go. But with all due respect, you have to understand that some players are different, special, and even more important to the environment and the community, and it's important to treat those players with respect. That is the quote I really wanted to get to because I think that's the overarching reason, obviously, besides the talent and all of that. That is the reason why we are still able to sit back and reflect on this Luka Doncic trade because it just felt nasty, if we're being honest. And where he says those players important to the environment and the community, you felt it from the community when Luka got traded, and you're still going to feel it. Obviously, the crazy, fire Nico chants and all that stuff that got a little out of control, but you know, the emotions warranted at least. And when you see a former executive of the team speak such powerfully about this trade that happened months ago still, and he still feels this way, that should tell you that if you're sitting here as a Mavericks fan and you're still upset with the Luka trade, you should know that you have every right to still feel a little or a lot upset with it. Um, but we do have a team, and it doesn't have Luka Doncic on it, but it does have Cooper Flag on it. So you got to live with that at least. And I just want to get back a little bit to the Daniel Gafford signing. And, reading an article here on the Smoking Cuban, um, written by Jared Alatorre. And, he suggests that the Daniel Gafford contract might suggest that he's headed back for the starting lineup. And in some ways, I do agree, but this could also just be the insurance signing because, yeah, Derek Lively has been in and out of the lineup since his rookie season. And Daniel Gafford has been a great insurance policy for that. Now, Daniel has also been in and out of the lineup, but just not quite as much as Derek Lively has. So I actually view the Daniel Gafford signing more as the insurance policy for Derek Lively. It doesn't necessarily mean that Derek Lively loses his spot in the starting lineup. Now, if he does lose his spot in the starting lineup, does Jason Kidd think Derek hasn't taken the jump he necessarily needs to take? I don't know because I feel like even right now, Daniel and Derek Lively are pretty similar in terms of what they're giving on the production side of things, rebounds, blocks, points, stuff like that. So maybe early on we see Daniel Gafford in that starting lineup, and I think it will be something along the lines of D'Lo, D'Lo, Clay, Coop, PJ. Oh no, AD. So let me start over. Uh, D'Lo, Clay, Coop, AD, Gafford. That feels like day one starting lineup, but it doesn't feel like week three starting lineup. I I would prefer Derek Lively, as most of you probably would, in the starting lineup, but I will, with somebody making 20 million annually, I wouldn't be shocked if he at least starts the season in the starting lineup. But to wrap things up here on Mavs Latest, get some Mavs chatter, just a little fun content here. Cooper Flag, um, one of the draftees that took part in the Athletic, asking some of the top prospects which matchup is going to be the toughest when they get into the NBA. And Cooper Flag was quick to say the reigning 2025 NBA champions, the Oklahoma City Thunder. And he says, I'll say the Thunder in general. They're young. They've got a lot of good pieces. So I think they're going to be a tough team to beat. They also ask him about an individual matchup. And he says, toughest matchup for NBA rookies. He says, oh, Giannis. Oh, yeah, for sure. He won't be my matchup. We good. I wouldn't be too quick to say Giannis won't be your matchup, Coop. I think sooner rather than later he's going to be your matchup, but I do love how he has some fun with the Athletic. I do love when they do a lot of those little interviews before the draft and you get to know these players and see their personality and have a little fun. So just wanted to get that in before we wrap things up here on Mavs Latest. But I'm Josyah Howard. Please subscribe, please comment, and again, let's get it, y'all.